Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Hello there.
Hello. So, guys, this was our Patreon. That was one of two Patreon exclusives yesterday. Lessons 2 and 3 on developing superhuman potential. We were listening to Wayne Steiger, and, man, so much of the world is going in the wrong direction, and it's almost like, we're separating into two totally different camps, and one camp might be superhuman, and the other camp is going to be perhaps less than what even was the norm in the past. And so, again, everybody has a lot of choices to make, a lot of decisions to make in your life. Prioritizing your health, prioritizing your mind, body, and spirit by developing regular healthy habits cannot be understated. And Cindy is going to take us into Mercury Retrograde. So this is going to be talking about the astrological implications and, what is really going on when we have these periods in time when it seems that everything kind of gets misunderstood and everything kind of heads down the wrong path.
Oh, it can be rough, and a lot of times people don't even know what's going on. It's just information is coming at you kind of backwards. But Mercury is our communication, it's our understanding, it's our phones, our computers, it's all the things that we use right now to communicate. So when Mercury starts to put off a different type of energy, all of these things can be affected, but mostly the human mind and the human body from my own experience. So there can be misunderstandings in conversation, especially in text. Somebody might misinterpret, the feeling or the energy going through on text. Texts and emails getting lost or misinterpreted, increase arguments and confusion in relationships. Technology failures, I've had this one, the phone, computers, software glitches. It seems like that's a little bit kind of on the incline, like a lot of people are having technology issues right now. Emails disappearing. I'm having trouble pulling up old emails. And then social media mishaps. There's just so much that can go on. We are going to talk a little bit about the good things, but travel disruptions, delays, cancellations, traffic jams, wrong direction, GPS failure. Oh my gosh, this is so creepy. One time I had my GPS, I forgot about this thing, and I have my GPS on, and it took me to a graveyard. It was just the creepiest thing. Poor judgment calls, second guessing choices, rushing into contracts or deals that later backfire. You really want to watch that one. Revisiting the past, old relationships can come up, unresolved issues coming back to haunt you, or is it coming back to allow you to revisit things, work and business setbacks, miscommunication with colleagues or clients. So this is, as you can see, it stretches across the board. It's not just, the one single communication with yourself or your friend. It goes everywhere. Errors in contracts or paperwork. This is a big one. This is so common. Delays in projects or missed deadlines. And this here's some ways we can survive Mercury retrograde. You'd want to double check emails and messages and agreements. Personally, I probably won't do them. I'll wait after my experiences with it. Back up important files and documents. Avoid signing major contracts unless necessary. Be patient with delays and misunderstandings. Understand that things are working themselves out, and there is a divine timing to everything that is done in your life. And maybe something just needs a little more time. And use this time to review and reflect rather than push forward aggressively. And that was one of the things that I really wanted to point out when it comes to what are the good things about Mercury retrograde. And one thing that happens to me is I get a huge creativity boost. It's just the way my brain works, but every time a Mercury retrograde comes around, I'm wanting to take more classes. I'm wanting to do more things. And it's like almost like a little start over point for me.
Yeah, so before I knew anything about astrology, I just, did whatever, was in my mind. I was creating as I went. And after I learned about this, it made me check and go, are we in Mercury retrograde? Because I after learning about it, it was a cause and effect, and it was like, why did this happen to me? I can't, what? And then you realize, like, oh, the energies weren't right for me to be doing that. And, I've learned that Mercury retrograde, it makes you pause. It makes you rest and actually reflect, and gives you time to think about things, think them through before you just jump into something that may or may not be in your best interest.
And I've noticed that can be so helpful for people. It's almost like a spell being broken in your mind, or in your energy field. Even you might have a lot of resistance or a lot of energy, and it just feels yucky all over, and things are going wrong. But when you find out, oh, okay, well, this is what's going on in my chart, boom! It's like that energy is just, it stops for me anyway. I've noticed it does help other people.
Yeah, we are, again, multidimensional beings operating on different densities. And when we understand that there's the natural programming of the matrix, and even the time that you were aiming at coming in the matrix is extremely significant. I can't think of any greater clue, especially for those people that are like, I never knew, what I really should be doing as far as a career, or the big questions, who am I really, why am I here, what did I come here for? The stars give you the biggest clues. And so having your birth chart done is something that really, when we look back in history, every single king, queen, major historical important personage would have their charts done. And this, they'd have court astrologers. There's a reason for that, because again, this is the programming of the natural matrix. And, there is free will in play, and often, perhaps unfortunately, most of the time, people get waylaid or sidetracked and go off on tangents that their higher self really didn't want them to do. But when we're in here, it's kind of like we're coming in blindfolded. You can get a peek at things that may appear to be hidden when you look to the astrology.
Well, it can definitely make life a little easier when you look at someone's chart or your own chart. It's not recommended in astrology look at their own chart, but more than twice a year, though. It's just a thing. But when you have someone else look at your chart, and it can bring you extra understanding. And I wasn't really, and I don't want to get too caught up with the ego part of things, but Western astrology just didn't fit me. It just didn't seem quite right. And then when I was introduced to Vedic astrology, everything fell into place for me. And although the information meshes, for me, it was the Vedic astrology part of things that brought me understanding. And just recently, like in Mercury retrograde, just like what I do, I started diving into transits lately. So I'm able to look at people's transits and give them further understanding of where they're at now. So you have someone's birth chart, which is like a picture of this in the sky when you were born. But, the planets keep going. They keep going. So what does that mean? What does that mean? So it means different things for different people, obviously, because everything is in motion, and these planets have a definite effect on the human body for me. And it's just something that really helped me understand myself and realize that, okay, there's parts of me that are a little bit glitchy, but you know what? That was for me to work through. That is something that I need to work on. And I do. And I do look at my transits. Maybe I shouldn't, but I do, and it really helps me. It's been helping me lately, and I think it's been helping other people. And then we have all the other Varga charts. There's like 16 charts in Vedic astrology, but I've honed in on the D9, D10, and the D12, which is your past life. So your D9 is, your destiny. D10 is, your work. What are you going to do for a living? And D9 is really, where is your heart at? So the birth chart is, kind of outlining you for what you're made to do in this lifetime. But sometimes your heart's not there. And I have learned that. But if you look at the D9, it really starts to speak to where your heart's at. And the D10, to me, D9, D10 go together. And then D12 is just fun for me. I do someone's past life and I get like these visions and I get to see things. So that's been a real blessing and an opportunity for me to learn that. The other thing is I'm very much self-taught. I do take classes, but I'm a little bit different in the way I learn because I am dyslexic and it made it very, very difficult. But I've gotten to where I can connect to people's planets. I connect to them, I connect to their planets, and I let the information flow through. So when I'm doing a chart, it's more like I'm channeling it.
Yeah, so whether you're in business or you're an athlete, we live in a world where it's about competition. And what can you do to get that edge, And whether it's, if you're talking to be an athlete, you're like, okay, well, what supplement can I take that gives me that little extra bump or edge? And so I think astrology does that for a lot of people. You look at it, and personally, it helps you understand who you are, your personality, what you come in here, what are your strong points, what are your weak points, and you look back at your life and you go, oh my gosh, I thought that I was going to be this in my career, but I wasn't really good at it. But it makes sense because energetically, you didn't come here with that particular gift, if you will. And so it helps you understand yourself. It also helps you understand in relationships, like whether you're a fit or whether you're not. And, when you first start out learning about this, you're like, is this a real thing? But then all of a sudden, you start to see it in your everyday life. I know a couple colleagues of mine, that they both knew, they weren't astrologists, but they just knew astrology. And so anytime that a certain personality would come through, they go, oh my God, that person is an Aries. And then they're like, when were you born? And then sure enough, I'm like, how the heck did you know that? Oh, because of this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wow, that's fascinating. And so the more, again, my ears perk up and I start to pay attention. And the next thing you know, you're like, wow, this is a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. And for me, it helped me so much. It's like I was so compelled to learn it. And believe me, I had many days of tears because I couldn't understand it. You have the houses, you have the zodiac signs, you have the planets. The planets have these degrees, and think about how many people there are on the planet. Well, that's how many charts there are, and that's how many different combinations that you could possibly have. So it's like each person has their own view lens, with the information that comes through the zodiac signs and through the planets and how the planets are how they're looking. It changes. It's like stained glass. It changes for every single person. It's like you got to learn to layer in that information and get that view of the stained glass window. And everyone is, their own unique personal type of piece of art. But what actually happens with the retrograde orbital motion, all planets moving in the same direction around the sun, but they travel at different speeds and distances. Perspective shift. When Earth, moving faster, overtakes an outer planet like Mars or Jupiter, the planet appears to slow down, stop, and move backwards or retrograde before resuming its usual forward motion. And the inner planets too, Mercury and Venus, also go retrograde. So it's important to know how we are connected to these planets. Our chakras are connected to these planets. So if there's going to be, a shift or a change in speed, whether it be Earth or another planet, that's going to affect the way you function. That's going to affect the way you go about things. And sometimes people they can force things. Let's say Saturn is not in a good position for you to start a business, and you keep trying to start this business at the wrong time, and you're trying and trying and trying, but you really probably should have waited 6 months when Saturn is in a little bit better position, so that Saturn's more of a blessing to you than anything. You can force things, but it's no fun. And that brings me to compatibility. I think compatibility is one of my favorite things to do, because it has so much to offer. And it's not just compatibility with you and a partner. It could be you and a business partner. It could be you and a friend. I mean, I have fun with compatibility. I check everything, because to me it's fun. And then I get to see how that works with other people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I was asking a friend when Cindy and I were first getting together to check our compatibility, and she said it was over. She said, you guys are just going to be inseparable once you get together because of that compatibility. She did human design, which takes in some different aspects, but again, compatibility in the chart is one of the first things I would look at always. Like if like you were saying, if you're going to go into business with somebody, you have to look at that. If you're certainly getting involved in a romantic relationship and the compatibility is not good, then it's more than likely, it's not that it can't be overcome, but you're just going to know that you're going to run into a lot of brick walls at times. There's going to be frustration, and it might not be as smooth as would be the case with some other individuals.
Not to mention your health. If there's going to be health problems involved because you're not getting along with someone, you got to take that into account. And I used to kind of I didn't like it when I would hear about arranged marriages, way back when. But what they did is they actually checked the compatibility of a chart. And I think that should be the first thing you should do before you move forward in any relationship, because that's key. That's how often are you both on the same wavelength at the same time. It could make your world a lot easier, but that was just common to check compatibility.
Yeah, and it was interesting because that same thought was going through my head like a day or two ago. We didn't discuss any of that, but I was thinking about how so many things that I used to maybe look at as like crazy or stupid, or how can people even think of that? Now, with the reservoir of knowledge that I've acquired, I understand that it's not so crazy, it's not so stupid, because, if your compatibility on certain levels is so low, there still could be sparks. You could still have sparks, but the relationship could be, so combustible and ultimately lead to you not being, the best and highest version of yourself. I had that situation myself in a relationship, and it was the most frustrating experience imaginable. And in fact, of the time of that relationship, as much time was spent apart because we couldn't get along. And I don't think I'm that bad, but then again, we never think we're that bad, do we? And as Joe's eyes bug out, he's like, wait a minute, I know you. Well, certainly, okay, so let me give you a for instance. If you have two people that have a very, very strong combustible sense of ego and self, sometimes you need somebody to lead. You need somebody to lead the dance in certain areas, and if neither is willing to let the other partner lead in a certain aspect, that could give you all sorts of troubles that are going to be very, very hard to overcome. When we do spiritual coaching, life coaching, if there are, and believe me, so much of what we get into is relationship issues, especially between one partner that is awake, so to speak, and one partner that is not. Oh my gosh, it's so common. It seems that it's a rarity that you have two partners that are on the same page, like Cindy and I. That's a rarity. But it does happen. But does that mean, that there's just no hope? No. I think there is always hope. We've seen all of the above. We've seen couples that have made it after working at things and understanding where the other person's coming from, even astrologically. But we have also seen where some relationships are just not simply meant to be long-term. They're meant to be some sort of spark to light the fire of perhaps a new direction in life or a new realization in life, but simply intended to be just simply a small piece of our life's bigger picture.
And what's also fun about the compatibility in Vedic astrology is you don't only do the moon. The moon is the mind, so you want to see where people are at with their mind to mind. You can also check all the other planets. So let's say Venus is your strongest planet and it's stronger than the moon. Well, you can work a lot out through just simply sitting down out for a very nice dinner and treating yourselves. That's how you would reach that person. And then, Saturn is kind of a tough one, though, because if you have Saturn, that's karma. So you got to look at that, and you can look at all these different aspects and the different planets and say, okay, well, what if these two are, really compatible with Jupiter? Using your wisdom, using your knowledge and understanding to work through problems. That's how you're going to work through problems. So that's what I thought was fun about Vedic astrology and learning all about the different planets and different compatibilities.
Yeah, because we live in polarity and there are so many other variables, I see astrology as a tool. And for your highest potential, you look at the energies that you came in with and what is in your best interest, and then you can either go with it or you don't. And, again, there's lots of variables where you are in your particular life, but it does give you an edge. So whenever I would see it, some of the things of course, it could be my ego mind is like, oh, that's not me. I don't do that. And then maybe a year later go, oh, crap, I should have listened to that reading that I had because it did happen. So, but again, it's all about potential. And so it's another tool in the toolbox, another thing that can, help you through life. And, yeah, I mean, I've had several readings over the years, and I definitely would recommend it.
Mm-hmm. I know that Saturn is kind of a stinker because Saturn is a developmental, it develops you, and it takes a very long time to go around. So if you're doing a chart too soon, or, if your Saturn has not developed, you're probably going to look at it and say, no way, that's not me. And then Saturn comes along 6 months later and starts to develop you. It can be difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's so much to this, and it really never ends. Again, anybody that just is thinking in terms of Western astrology and sun signs and, oh, well, that's not me, and that didn't happen today when I read my horoscope. You couldn't be farther from the truth. And again, the reality is the Vedic astrology does take in the tilt of the earth. It is an older system, and I think, again, now we can see the shortcomings of, let's say, allopathic medicine, Western allopathic medicine. It's becoming very, very obvious, a lot of the shortcomings. Well, again, it's because people are realizing that the farther back in time we go to the more simple natural things, there's just a lot more to be gained there. And the Vedic astrology being older than the Western astrology, and also taking into account the tilt of the earth again, this is a big reason why people may not see and understand the true value of knowing your chart and knowing your natural tendencies when you came in, what you were trying to achieve. Not only that, but again, you could look at the past life chart and get information on how successful were you in your past life. What was that focus all about? And this is where we start to see the journey of the soul.
Indeed. To me, it's all very, very fun, and it's been useful for my own development, for my own understanding. So thank you very much for listening. And if you're feeling upside down and backwards and things just aren't going right, just take a rest. Just lean back and rest and let it pass. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.